To begin the conversation of network troubleshooting, this quote from Albert Einstein lays out a very important idea. Network-related problems can seem very difficult, and sometimes it's tempting to just start trying things and hope for the best. That's not usually very fruitful, as if you don't understand the root cause, you probably won't be completely successful. Before you act, you'll want to look at the information you can gather from various points of the system to truly define the problem. Once you know that, you can devise the lowest impact solution. When troubleshooting these kinds of problems, we're typically dealing with one of three common problems. The first layer is that of basic connectivity, making sure we have the devices all connected the correct way. They're all configured correctly and they're all running properly. After all those challenges are overcome, the next layer tends to be related to how the devices are discovered, how they interact with each other, and how we interact with them. Once all those issues are sorted out, the final layer involves the finer detail of troubleshooting media streaming issues. At this layer, we're looking at network performance issues and proper prioritization of packets. In troubleshooting basic connectivity problems, Q-SYS configurator is our first stop. Does the device in question show up? If it doesn't show up at all, then check the switch connections. Does the device respond to touch of the front panel buttons? If not, it may indicate a hardware problem. If you know the device is running and you know its IP address, you might try a simple ping to make sure you have point-to-point connectivity to that device. If that's a success, try adding a hard link to the device in Q-SYS Designer. If it suddenly appears, that could indicate that multicast traffic is being blocked on the network. If it does show up, does it do so in green or red? Red typically indicates a device is configured for another IP subnet. Either the computer or the Q-SYS device is configured incorrectly. Remember that the connection from the computer running Q-SYS configurator is one pathway, while the connection from a core running the system to a peripheral is different. In some cases, you'll see the device as green in configurator, but see a report of the device missing when connected to the running system in Q-SYS Designer software. Another indicator of this is that the design is shown as idle on that peripheral in the configurator view. That tells you that the core can't find that peripheral to get it configured. There are a few different potential problems. One, maybe the peripheral could have the wrong IP configuration and be on a different subnet than the core. Two, the peripheral could have a name that doesn't match the Q-SYS inventory item in the design file. Or three, multicast discovery packets may not be getting from the core to the network segment that the peripheral is on. The point here is to remember that there are multicast and unicast elements at play, so try to separate those two elements when troubleshooting. That'll help you find a solution much faster. Sometimes you might be looking to Q-SYS event logs to lead you to understand a problem, but there seems to be too much information to grasp. In older event viewers, you can use Control-F to find the items you're interested in very quickly. In Core Manager, there's the Search Messages field with the same functionality. This can help you quickly when the other filters aren't showing you the entries you'd like to see. Remember, the built-in ping, ART, and Traceroute commands can give you a quick assessment of network connectivity. A ping helps you make sure something is at the IP address you expect the device to respond to. If you have a response but something still doesn't seem right, you might try the ARP command to make sure that the correct MAC address is associated with that IP. If not, you know right away you have a conflict on the network. The Traceroute command can help find problems with routed paths like those to hosted SIP providers. One of the most powerful troubleshooting tools in Q-SYS in regard to the network is the ability to run a PCAP capture directly on the core or peripheral itself. This isn't going to help you troubleshoot QLAN or other streaming protocols, but it's very useful for troubleshooting problems with a Q-SYS softphone, external control issues, and a number of other things. Remember that Q-SYS peripherals don't have a lot of memory to store large PCAP files, so plan accordingly. When it comes time to download and analyze these files, remember you'll need the Wireshark program to see and understand them. Once our devices are properly configured and behaving on the network, we often uncover other unicast and multicast issues related more to switch configuration. As mentioned in other lectures, sometimes it's to our advantage to create multiple virtual networks on the same set of switches. For example, we might want Q-SYS and QLAN to have a dedicated VLAN on a corporate network to separate it from the other common data network. When this configuration is applied, it can add a layer of complication to troubleshooting. One network port may be a part of one VLAN, while the very next is on a different one. Plugging the Q-SYS device into the wrong one could be placing it on the wrong network. When there are connection problems, you might have to check the port configuration to make sure that it's assigned to the correct VLAN. Network switches organize VLANs using 802.1q tags, which are numbers embedded into network packets, so they know what packet should ride on which VLAN. Sometimes, packets leave the switch with those tags still in place, in which case it seems like Q-SYS didn't get the message at all. Q-SYS does not process VLAN tagged packets. We want to make sure that packets are configured as untagged on egress in the switch configuration for Q-SYS. We also want to make sure that the switch is applying the tag from a Q-SYS port into the infrastructure, as Q-SYS doesn't do that either. When multiple VLANs must cross a link between switches, the group of VLANs is called a trunk. Another common issue when all the devices are missing on another switch is that the appropriate VLAN wasn't trunked from switch to switch. This is another aspect that can only be found by looking at the configuration of the switches themselves. One other important thing to remember is that a 1 gigabit link between switches can carry only a maximum of 1 gigabit combined for all VLANs. Very often, one designer is working on the equipment for one VLAN, maybe video, while another is working on the audio VLAN, thinking they have the entire uplink speed to work with. That is not true. This can especially become a choke point for networks that must carry 4K video streams over uplinks between switches. If we see Q-SYS devices disappearing on the network or complete loss of network connectivity to everything on the network, it may be related to IGMP problems on the switch. This is especially true for networks carrying a lot of multicast video data. Have you ever connected two high-bandwidth multicast video encoders onto a network without IGMP filtering? The result is often a complete flood of the network. Connectivity is lost to everything until you unplug an encoder. Remember that a few things must be true to make IGMP snooping and filtering functionality work properly. There must be one and only one IGMP querier on each network or VLAN requiring IGMP functionality. If there isn't one, devices will drop off after a time when the IGMP tables are periodically cleared in the switch. If there are multiples, the tables in each switch might become incorrect, which can cause the network to act unpredictably. Remember also that IGMP filtering must often be enabled in a separate step of switch configuration. If that step isn't taken, ports can still be saturated by multicast traffic. When you're not sure if you're dealing with an IGMP-related issue, it's often good to take these steps. Temporarily unplug high-bandwidth devices and see if the network recovers. If so, check the IGMP configuration immediately. If that step doesn't help, try disabling IGMP to see if the remaining devices start to react more predictably. This is often proof that there isn't a querier on the network in question. If you know where to look in the switch configuration, you can often see the table of multicast groups and the ports assigned to them. If all our ports are assigned to every group, then multicast filtering isn't working. You'll need to check that part of the configuration. Finally, if nothing else works, you can take a PCAP capture at a Q-SYS device and look for more advanced problems with IGMP configuration.